Hello, BookTube. We're continuing with my 2022 library tour, which is both a visual record for me of all the books that I had during the year of 2022, and also a call to action to the rest of you to do your own library tours on camera so that I can see what you have, so that I can see all the stuff you have. I put out this call to action a while ago. It's been slow to gain traction, which is kind of strange considering that I am a certified sexy YouTube influencer. But I noticed that CriminOlly just started his. He's got boxes in the attic. Boxes full of books in the attic. He says there's no room for them in the house, but I think I could probably find room for them in the house. There's room for them just in the background of his own videos. And Jason Harrigan has been doing a library tour. Oh my. I always say I'm going to leave links, but this time I will make sure to leave links. He's been doing a library tour that is just a Beethoven symphony. Every one of them is just a Beethoven symphony. They're just incredible. And David Murphy has started a library tour, and his videos are also symphonies. Unfortunately, by Mahler. It takes all types. And we are continuing. We are in puppy territory here, or what used to be puppy territory. I don't have a puppy anymore. I have a full-grown baby bean who's an adult dog and has no more interest in roaming around on the floor than you or I would. I reflexively called it that because for a long time she was a little puppy, and I had old dogs instead who never bothered me. We are down here because we are at the bottom shelf of the Penguin Classics bookcase. We've gone through 5 shelves of these things, and now we're at the bottom. And despite the fact that we're only doing one shelf, it's going to take longer than others because it's multiple stacked mass market, the little paperback Penguins, which Penguin doesn't make anymore. They haven't made them in 20 years. But you still find them at used bookstores, and we encountered a couple of them, didn't we? We encountered War and Peace, this old battered War and Peace, and I think Middlemarch as well. Once upon a time, I had hundreds of Penguin Classic mass market paperbacks. There are pictures from my little book rooms in years past where I devoted a whole bookcase to them as well, but they were double and triple stacked. There were hundreds of them. They're a little bit uncongenial to the eye. They're a little bit inconvenient. They're not as annotatable. There's not as much space in them as there is in a hardcover or a trade paperback. And of course, they're not anywhere near as convenient as an ebook. So my number of Penguin mass markets has dwindled, and they have also migrated down to the bottom shelf. There are only a couple of these things that I love so much in this form that I go back to them. Because it was in this form, it was a handful of these, that were my traveling companions for years. Them and my dogs were my traveling companions for years. I had a footlocker, and I arranged my penguins into a mosaic tile floor on the floor of that footlocker, tamping down the last one so that even if you flipped the thing over and shook it, the books would not come loose. It took a lot of time to do. I loved it. That was when my friends knew that I was going on a long trip, was that I would be making that penguin mosaic. I still have the footlocker. I couldn't do without it. I work on that footlocker every single day, but it has old clothes in it anymore. It doesn't go traveling. I wonder sometimes if it misses that. But some of these mass market penguins are the very ones that I used to pound into that footlocker. And if I remember, I will try and find. I wrote a short piece about traveling with those penguins that everyone who's read has loved. I've been rather touched by how many of you have written to me and said that you have been reading the prose pieces that I've appended about some of these books in this library tour, and complimenting me on my writing, which never happens. Absolutely never happens. Even my oldest friends, even friends who are also writers, never say that was well done. They just move straight ahead to what'd you think. That's that sort of thing. But never. And I hate to use a poncy word like craft, but I have been writing for a living for a long time, and I almost never hear anything like that, even though I put work into what I do. I don't make any great claims to its merit, but I'm very touched that some of you have been liking that. And this piece that I will try to remember to leave down below about traveling with my Penguin Classics is one of the rare pieces where, even given that, people have commented that they really liked it. So I'll try to remember to do that. But anyway, enough falderall. Let's get on to the books. We're going to be a while. We'll start off with the first and greatest of them all. This is the Auburn Sullen Court translation of the Histories of Herodotus, an old mass market paperback that I could not do without. Then we have this old Penguin Classic edition of Moby Dick. Several of you have pointed out that in the actual trade paperback and hardcover listings there has been no Moby Dick. I do not have the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition of Moby Dick, for instance. I think it's kind of ugly. And I don't have any trade paperbacks either. Mainly, I think, because most of the Penguin trade paperbacks that I remember, at least for the American market, have a cover that features either a picture of a dead whale or a picture of a whale in the process of being murdered. And I don't want to see that. I don't want that on the cover of my book. Even this one, look at that. This old. I wouldn't get rid of this volume for all the mud in Egypt, but even that is you've got humans desperately slaughtering an 80-year-old creature, a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother, probably a living library, a repository of a vast amount of inherited acoustical knowledge. And they're slaughtering her so that they can cut open her head and harvest a quart or two of oil. Okay. All right. We're going to hit the greatest hits here in this Penguin Classics mass market tour, because these are the ones that have survived the fires and the eliminations and everything. There are almost no whims here. This is the Neville Coghill Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Then we have the Penguin Classics of Livy. Penguin Classic did Livy in 4 volumes. These are 3, Rome and the Mediterranean, Early History of Rome, and Rome and Italy, that really just chart the mytho-historic growth of Rome according to Livy. Now, in these videos, I have pointed out several times over the course of these different shelves that I have doubles. Even though I just a little while ago, just a couple of years ago, ruthlessly pruned my Penguin Classic wall into a Penguin Classic bookcase, some doubles escaped me, and invariably it has caused a flood of people asking if they can have the doubles. What's going to happen to the doubles? What is the fate of the doubles? And I have listened carefully to all of those emails, but let's keep in mind, these Penguin Classic mass markets, even if there are doubles, are not negotiable. Okay, these are deeply, deeply dear to me. Speaking of dear to me, we have Gerald of Wales. I think we've seen him in a trade paperback, but I would never get rid of any of these mass markets just because I have the trade paperback. Oh, look at this. Good Lord. This is something that we've seen already. We saw Penguin Classics Iliad, the Ryu Iliad. This is the Ryu Iliad, same as we saw before, only this is a much better cover. This is a mass market with a much better cover. I went back to this thing so many times. When I was writing, years and years and years ago, I wrote a novel called Troy War, which was a narrative of the whole story of the Trojan War. And I went back to Homer, and I went back to Hesiod, I went back to Quintus of Smyrna, I went back to a whole bunch of people. And then it didn't matter because the book sort of took over me. But when I was going back and poring over the Ryu, that's when I really realized what I hadn't realized in decades past, which is how beautiful it is. It really is, despite the fact that it's prose, it's a really good translation. Okay, then we have, again, this is a double. This is the Odes and Epodes of Horace. We have 14 Byzantine Rulers. Don't think I've ever seen this in a trade paperback, but I don't go looking for Penguin trade paperbacks anymore. And then we have the Penguin 2-volume Les Morts d'Arthur, which is, these are very good, but one of you sent me the Norton Critical Edition of Les Morts d'Arthur, which is the version that I want. Then A History of My Times, Xenophon. Quite a few of these things came from the old Penguin bookstore. This one did, I'm almost certain. Yes. The old Penguin bookstore in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right across the river, where I briefly helped out. I helped them out. I mainly helped them out of a lot of stock. Then we have, again, De Rerum d'Arthur. We have On the History of the Universe by Lucretius. This is the old Penguin Classic Ronald Latham translation. We saw this in a trade paperback, but not the same translator, I don't think. Then the mass market paperback of the Fagel's Sophocles, the Theban plays of Sophocles. The Secret History of Procopius in a Penguin mass market. This is the history of Justinian and Theodora and the General Belisarius and his wife that Procopius was writing the whole time that he was writing all of his officially recognized documents on the reign of Justinian, full of scandal, full of stories, really, really interesting. Even if you don't believe any of it, I don't particularly believe that Justinian conversed with demons high in the upper windows of his palace, but I do believe that that a gigantic whale named Porphyrion menaced traffic in the inner sea, and did so for a long time, decades before he was convincingly dead. Okay, then we have Hell. This is Dante's Hell. This is the version by Dorothy Sayers. I cannot recommend this version strongly enough. Maybe not for the versification, but for the notes. Sayers, it was a deeply held passion project of Sayers. Okay, then we have, oh god, is this a lot? Yes, we have a lot here. We have a bunch of Norse sagas. Penguin used to do these in these skinny little mass market paperbacks. I have all of them at some point or other. I have all of them. I'm assuming that all of the Penguin mass markets that I have are here. I'm assuming they're not anywhere else, but I could be wrong about that. Then we have the erotic poems of Ovid. This is a translation by Peter Green, the great classicist Peter Green. We have, again, the satires of Horace and Persius this time. Persius is not as well known, justifiably so. We have the Rex Warner translation of Thucydides. Did we see Thucydides in a bigger trade paperback? We might not have. I might have skipped straight from the mass market paperback of Thucydides and Penguin to an ebook of the Penguin classic of Thucydides. I might well have done that. Then we have the Digest of Roman Law. We saw this already. It's Justinian all over again. Cicero's Letters to Atticus. Nice, big, thick volume. Really could stand to have a new edition of this with a new introduction. Not a new translation. This translation is by D.R. Shackleton Bailey, who's a great authority on Cicero, a great translator of him, a great authority on Horace as well. You couldn't do better than that for this volume, but it'd be nice if Penguin brought this out again. It's incredibly interesting. Okay. Then we get to a deep favorite. All these are favorites in one way or another, but this one goes beyond the pale. This is the Aubrey de Selincourt translation of the Second Punic War volumes of Livy, the War with Hannibal, that I love. I know huge chunks of the book by heart. It's my favorite of the Penguin classics. It and Herodotus are probably my favorites. Okay, then we have Orlando Furioso. This is volume 2. Penguin used to do these in 2 volumes. I think I had one in trade paperback, but not the other. I have both in ebook, and there's a later one volume that really, I don't know why I have it. It isn't really worth having, but these are great. This translation is by Barbara Reynolds, and it is a wonder to behold. Her translation itself is a wonder to behold. The Poems of Catullus, very good. This is Peter Wingham, a slim volume on the Poems of Catullus. Let's see. Let's just move on. We have a lot of these to do. Njal Saga, there we go, in a battered old Penguin mass market. Okay, this is the Oresteia by Aeschylus, also the Robert Fagles. These aren't going to be collected in any order, I don't think. Orlando Furioso Volume 1. So those really ought to be together. What have we got next? Geoffrey of Monmouth. Again, I will try to remember to leave links. I have written about all of these things at length. I'll try to remember to leave links. I think for Geoffrey of Monmouth, I think maybe it was Geoffrey of Monmouth, maybe it was Froissart, maybe it was one of those two. I actually did my own translation of a chunk of them because I was so upset. I was so unsatisfied with the translation that was in front of me while I was writing about it. But these are great books. These are really, really great books. Okay, well, I said these are favorites. These are old favorites. This is the Praise of Folly by Erasmus, and it has been everywhere. It is more widely traveled than most of you are. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Then we have the Ryu Odyssey, again with a lovely cover. I don't really like the dumb covers, with some old Greek coin or something or other. I want a picture that I can like. This is, of course, the Slaying of the Suitors. Is the picture there. Then we have Common Sense by Thomas Payne, which I think we saw. I think I have a trade paperback of Common Sense, but not with his face on the cover, his tobacco addicted face. Then we have Natural History of Selborne, Gilbert White. I have this mainly for the introduction and the notes because I have a nicer volume of Selborne that I like better. The Pillow Book of Sei Shonagon. We saw this already. I have a trade paper out of this, but this is the reinforced mass market. Delightful reading. Brainless, but delightful. The Civil War of Caesar. Julius Caesar's Civil War. This is Rex Warner as well. No, Jane Gardner. This is the Jane Gardner translation. And this is an old friend, like most of these, but it has, in a way, fallen by the wayside for the landmark Julius Caesar, which has a newer and fully annotated translation of all of Caesar. And then we have a UK-only mass market paperback of the Odes of Horace that just happened to come to me. I would never have had access to it otherwise, but I thought it was lovely. I thought it was a lovely thing, even though it's an old mosaic. What is this? Cover shows young girl with flowers, a Roman fresco. It says right on it, not for sale in the U.S., but it came to me anyway. Okay, then we have Paradise, the Dorothy Sayers version of Paradiso. What is next here? Okay, then History of the Franks, Gregory of Tours. This is also an old favorite of mine, battered and reinforced. Okay, two different Beowulfs. David Wright and Michael Alexander. We have two different mass market Beowulfs, in case you want to read them side by side. I have, I think, 3 other Beowulfs here. There's a complete Old English poems. There's the Seamus Heaney version. I have a few Beowulfs. In fact, we might have more just in the old Penguin Classic mass markets, because sometimes I do like to just go through them and see who's doing what with what and why. All right, let's just move on here. Oh, look at this. We saw at the very beginning of this bookcase those Penguin 80s, that box set of little penguins. But they also did, they do something like that with every major anniversary. And they did one when Penguin turned 60, only it was these little things. So we have Beowulf again. This is just Beowulf, just his confrontation with Grendel. And they did a whole set of these little things. I wish I had them all. Every once in a while, I will see 20 or 30 of them at the Brattle, but it's been a while. And the last time I saw 20 or 30 of these at the Brattle for $1 a piece, I grabbed the ones I wanted instead of grabbing them all, and that was insane. I should have grabbed them all. So, because these are unbeatable for sticking in a coat pocket, just unbeatable. The Brattle will provide. They will turn up. I don't have many of them. I think I have one on the passage from the Diary of Samuel Pepys about the Great Fire of London. Maybe a couple of others, but I want them all. There's probably a box set of them somewhere that I could find on eBay for $1 million. Another Norse saga in mass market. Let's see how we're doing here. How are we doing for time? We're all right. The Lives of the Later Caesars. We saw this in a trade paperback. This is a heavily underlined and annotated edition of the old mass market paperback. Don't know how many of these things could stand a reread, even. Okay, this is a mass market paper. We saw this already in trade paperback, Chronicles of the Crusades. This is the little paperback of it. Another Norse saga. All the Norse sagas ought to be together. I have them all. This is Anna Karenina. Very, very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting. All about the Byzantine era. Jason Harrigan, in his video today, his library tour today, mentions that not a lot of people, they know a lot about Rome. They like reading about Rome, and they like reading about the Crusades, but they don't really know much about the 1,000 years in between, and that's a shame, because it's fascinating history. There are, of course, gigantic, big, readable, canonical texts of that history that even Penguin has never reprinted, but you can find them. Then we have the Eclogues of Virgil. This is the Guy Lee translation. Let's see, what else do we got here? There's Froissart. There we go. This is the Geoffrey Brereton translation. We have the Love Visions of Chaucer. So the Book of the Duchess, which is absolutely lovely. The Legend of Good Women, which got Chaucer in a lot of trouble. These are translated by Brian Stone, with, again, a loving, caring introduction. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, these last ones are just wedged in there. Oh no. All right, this could take some time. See, Jason prepares himself ahead of time, and he's wise, and this is in all things to do so. Right, let's try and do this. We're not bad for time. We could finish this. We have to finish this shelf today. I don't want to do any more Penguins after this, and I don't want to spend any more time down on the floor. So this is the Ian Scott Kilvert translation of one part of Plutarch, The Age of Alexander. So this is Alexander and all of his major generals and some of their counterparts. Another another Norse saga. This is another copy of the Ryu Homer's Iliad. Let's see. Let's move on here. Poems of Wang Wei. All these little mass market paperbacks. Most of them came my way through diligent scouring of bookstores, but I was also helped by the old Penguin bookstore. There used to be a store just selling Penguin classics. That's all they did, and it was owned by a brother of the owner of the store where I worked, right up the street, and staff sharing was common. So, and I found all the out of the way stuff there that you often didn't see in bookstores, that had just a sample of penguins, but not all of them. Then History of the Church, Eusebius, believe it or not, very, very good reading. A lot of these things I feel like they should come with a warning saying this isn't as boring as it looks. In fact, it's fascinating. A Celtic Miscellany, not lovely. Look at that edition. Let's see here. Basho, Narrow Road to the Deep North. Just a skinny little thing. This is translated by Nobuyuki Yuasa, for a rather extensive line of Penguin non-Western classics, like this one, Poems of the Lake Tang. Lots and lots of fun stuff in there, lots and lots of interesting stuff, with lots of good commentary. Then another copy of Chaucer's greatest finished poem. This is done by Neville Coghill, who's also the guy behind the mega-selling Penguin Canterbury Tales. Then another copy of Robert Graves' imperishable translation of Suetonius. This one with an introduction and sort of face-saving notes by Michael Grant, the classicist Michael Grant. Let's see. Let's try and wheedle our way in here. This is going to be such a mess to fix again. Another collection of Irish stuff. This early Irish myths and sagas with another lovely cover. I am always happy when Penguin resists the urge to just reprint a tapestry of some kind or other. Always glad. I know it's a question of money, but I'm always happy when they put some effort into it. Then we have Volume 1 of the Complete Poems of William Wordsworth. I have both of these. I don't think Penguin ever did them in a trade paperback. That would be nice. It'd be nice if they did that, or if they took both of those big volumes and again put them in one of these enormous Penguin Classic Deluxe editions. Can you imagine one of these volumes of the Complete Wordsworth, requiring no editorial intervention on their part, none whatsoever? Take the two books of the Complete Wordsworth, the two volumes that you already have the copyright to, and put them in one of these called the Complete Wordsworth. Can you imagine how nice that would be with the French flaps and the deckled edges? That would be just incredible. It's the same thing if you did the Dorothy Sayers Dante. Same thing if you did a big volume of Livy. I would like to see all of those. Then we have Polybius, The Rise of the Roman Empire, in an old, much consulted mass market paperback. I was wondering when you were going to make your appearance. There's Tacitus, my guy Tacitus, the Annals of Imperial Rome, and somewhere in here is everything else as well. I would hope they're not just gone. We have the Comedies of Terrance. I wrote a nice long piece about Terrance. I'll try to remember to find it. It was wonderful for a while there to just write about these things at length for the old Open Letters Monthly, the precursor of Open Letters Review. Okay, The Last Poets of Imperial Rome. I know this got a trade paperback reprint that I just don't have. Apollonius of Rhodes. This is the Ryu translation of the Argonautica. With his, I believe, an introduction by him and his notes. There's Volume 1 of Orlando Furioso. To go with Volume 2, somewhere in this pile. This is not, strictly speaking, a Penguin Classic in the sense of reprinting the canon. This is instead, Penguin Classic had a little library within a library of studies of William Shakespeare, including some really, really good stuff. And again, I think there were 10 or 15 of these, and I wish I had them all. This one is Shakespeare's Plays in Performance by John Russell Brown. So it's the same look of the Penguin Classic, but it's not reprinting anything you'd read for school. Instead, it's a fantastic Shakespeare library. All right, let's just push on here. This is Purgatory, Dorothy Sayers. So all three of them. Then second copy of Procopius, The Secret History. Let's see. I'm surprised that the Jungle Books hasn't arrived yet. That's a little strange. what have we got here? Oh, there's another Gerald of Wales. History and Topography of Ireland is quite a bit wrong here, but it's also a lot of fun. Cicero's letters to his friends, so different from the letters to Atticus. This is Cicero saved and published a lot of his correspondence, and these two volumes go together, volume 1 and volume 2, and they are amazing. They are absolutely amazing, and quite a few of them, a lot of his letters to Atticus, because Atticus was a high-ranking official. There's an air of performance. But with a lot of these letters to his friends, there is not any of that. And that makes it all the more fascinating. What do people write about when they write to each other? That makes it all the more fascinating. Okay, all right, The Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling. I have had many, many editions. This thing has been reinforced 4 or 5 times because I keep going back to it. Although not anymore. Not anymore. Now I go back to Kipling on ebook. The Jungle Books is on my phone. It's on all of my iPads. It's on all of my computers. It's on all of my e-readers. So it's everywhere. It's all around me. And those things, it will be on those things even after they stop getting regular manufacturer's updates. It'll be on those things basically forever unless I go in and intentionally wipe it. Just the other day, just 2 days ago, I was in the tech cabinet, the infamous tech cabinet here at Hyde Cottage, and found my trusty iPad. What I, for years on this channel, called my trusty iPad. It's an iPad 2nd generation. That a dear old friend of mine bought for me, just out of the blue as a gift. And I used that iPad forever. It's an iPad 2nd generation, and I used it for probably 10 years as my only tablet and pretty much my only high-tech computer. Took pictures with it, wrote things on it, took notes on it, and also downloaded books on it. Lots and lots of them. And I found that that thing, the 2nd generation iPad, hasn't taken updates from the manufacturer in a long time. It's one of the first little warning windows that pops up when you power it up is that this device is no longer supported at all. It's hard to find anything for it, even gear. It needs a case. And I think I found a case that will work for it, but you have to double check and triple check because even the people who are posting the cases for sale online don't believe that you're really getting a case for a 12-year-old computer. They just don't believe it. Well, I know I said that this technically does fit an iPad 2nd generation, but you don't really have one, do you? I mean, it still works. You have an iPad 2nd generation that you still use. The iPad 2nd generation is a good machine. Nice wide bezels so that you're not constantly turning the pages. It's got nice heft to it. Good and solid. And that iPad 2nd generation, I mean, I said that I used it scrupulously for 10 years. A lot of pictures on that thing. A lot of writing on that thing. And yet I checked when I powered it up. It, first of all, it took a charge just fine. It holds a charge just fine. But when I powered it up, just out of idle curiosity, I checked the memory. And it's got a huge amount of space left on it. Just gigantic. So it is in every way a functioning machine. So anyway, we are actually done. We're going to finish up with volume 2 of the complete poems of William Wordsworth. So those two really belong together. These two belong together. It's a great old set that really has no counterpart that I know of. When I see a nice big fat modern library or something like that, it's always the select poetry of William Wordsworth. Even Penguin, when they do the Prelude, they'll do a number of different editions of the Prelude. Instead of one collated scholarly edition that shows you line variants. I don't know. I don't know. Penguin is not perfect, of course. They're not God. But I think about them as the ideal kind of reprint library. And so I automatically think about what things I would like to see in that library. And I don't see them. I don't see them. I see a selected verses of Longfellow, but not a complete Longfellow or, 1,000-page thing. I don't, for instance, in this tour, we saw no Idylls of the King by Tennyson and nothing else by Tennyson either. There should be a nice big volume, gigantic volume of him. There should be, I could just, on the Victorians, I could go on forever and ever, but there's a lot that's missing here. That's fine. That's just fine. But that will do it for the Penguin Classics section of this 2022 library tour. We may still encounter Penguin Classics here and there, but this is where the bulk of them are. So that was them. So we're gonna move on from here. I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book Team.